You're very welcome to Confident Women Ireland's Woman to Woman show panelists with me, Roisin Leclerc. And on my screen, the top screen, is Gladys O'Neill. Gladys is a women's rights activist and also a disabilities activist, and is a regular here on the panel. Next is Sabine Devine. Sabine is a women's rights activist and disability activist, and also the founder of Women Are Speaking. Rosemary's a mom of two, spent most of her life in California, specifically San Francisco, and also worked in events and PR. And then we have Tracy Donegan, who is a midwife and doula, and also the founder of Gentle Birth Official. And joining us for the very first time is indeed Catherine Monaghan. Catherine is a Wicklow woman and is one of the founding members of Wicklow Women for Women, who just had a great event last week. So, you ladies, you are very welcome again to the Woman to Woman show panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Roisin.
So, Catherine, as I said in the intro, you're new to the panelists, and you're very, very welcome to your first show. So, Catherine, we'll start off with you. You are one of the founding members of Wicklow Women for Women, and you had an event last week. So let's kick off and get into that. Who are Wicklow Women for Women? Who are you, and what do you do?
Hi, Roisin. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here with all these lovely women. So Wicklow Women for Women, we're a small group at the moment. There's 7 of us in our kind of core group, but we have a growing mailing list and following, which is great. We met, I think it was November 2022, after the event in the Ashling, actually. So we were kind of just sitting near each other afterwards, and it happened then that we realized we lived close to each other. There were a few, who knew each other already. So we kind of shared some very passionate, fiery conversation on the way home about, all things women's rights, gender ideology, everything. It had been a great day in the Ashling. We had lots to talk about, and we had a lot in common. So we just formed a WhatsApp group first. We just wanted a bit of solidarity, but we very quickly kind of, solidified a bit of a plan to kind of work together to actually do something. We just really wanted to be able to feel like we were doing something, and be able to talk and encourage discussion about the issues that we were seeing and that we were reading about. So we met in November. We had our first event a couple of months later in January, very quickly, in the Glenview Hotel, where we had a week focused on the SPHE curriculum that was changes that were happening. So that was really successful. We had Stella O'Malley, we had Sandra Adams from the Countess, and we had Kerry. Oh goodness, I'm going to forget Kerry's surname now, but I will find out. She was talking about a kind of personal experience growing up as a lesbian. But and we had lots of engagement from the audience, lots of great Q&A. We really enjoyed it. It was great. It was very successful. And then we had an event last week, which Roisin was at, and Sabi, and it was great. So that was focused on the referendum. Obviously, it was an information session for anyone to come to, free. And we had Leisha de Bruyne from the Countess, and Colin Kenny, who's a professor emeritus from DCU and a journalist and a barrister as well. I spoke a little bit as well, just about my, personal kind of experience. And again, we, lots of great engagement, lots of Q&A, really interesting conversation, not just about the proposed amendments, but about lots of other issues around that, like the media, how it's being portrayed in the media. So it was very interesting, and I found it so interesting and so informative. Myself, Leisha, and Colin were just fantastic. So that's us. So we're just trying to kind of provide a space for people to ask questions and talk to people in the know, and just solidarity as well for other women and other other, women and men to talk about these things. When we met, we all, I think, have been kind of quietly fuming away at home about everything that was going on. And it was such a relief to meet and kind of form a little group where we could talk to each other, support each other. And, we've all become really good friends. I mean, I don't think we have a day where there aren't messages back and forth on the group, if it's just sharing articles, or, sometimes we're busy if we're organizing an event. But yeah, we've been to a lot of great events together over the last year and a half now as well. We went down to Killarney for the weekend for the GenSpect conference, and we've been to any of the Let Women Speak and various things that have happened as well. So so it's really just about solidarity and supporting each other, supporting other people. We send out Carol writes a great email, Carol Hunter, who's our she's in charge of our Twitter and our email, and she sends out really informative, very entertaining emails regularly to our followers, just kind of updating people on stuff of interest that's going on, articles or events. So that's us.
And Catherine, was it last week? The time is just going. Was it last week or the week before? I think it was last week. You were also down at speaking at a debate with Colette Colfer as well.
Yes. So last Wednesday, I was down in Waterford in the university down there, SCTU. I had Colette had got in touch and asked me to do a debate with her. So Colette and I it was a debate about the referendum. Colette and I were on the No team, and there were two people, Ray Griffin and Mary Roach, who's county councillor, on the Yes team. So that was a very new thing for me now. I'm not normally a public speaker at all. So,
go on.
But what happened was I think it kind of started off because I had written a letter to the Irish Times a few weeks ago about the referendum, and the letter ended up being read out by Sharon Keoghan then in the Shannon during their discussion about it. And so I think that was kind of how Colette and I ended up kind of crossing. We crossed paths at other events and that, but anyway, that was kind of how the debate came about. And actually, the other funny little thing about the letter that I have to tell people is that the day that the letter was published, my mom had also written into the Irish Times over the previous week, and her letter was published right beside my letter. And I had talked in my letter about how my mom had worked full-time in a fulfilling career for her whole life and hadn't been impacted or held back by Article 41. And then she's there, her letter, with a different surname, because I go by Monaghan now. So that was really funny. She was there in her letter talking about her career. Nobody would have known her daughter was the letter beside talking about her as well. But
we do now.
So the debate, anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on here.
That's fantastic.
Was down at the university, and I mean, we didn't know whether there'd be 20 people there or 60, but actually there was well over 100, lots of students. So it was really well attended. And it was, it was very successful. Like, I mean, they didn't take a vote at the beginning, unfortunately, but they asked for a show of hands at the end, and there was a very, very clear majority on the no side. I'd say it was probably 70-30 maybe. So that was really, it was actually really heartening. And because there were a lot of students, a lot of young people. So so that was great, really good. And I mean, RTE were there, but they haven't used any of the footage, and I don't think they're going to. And unfortunately, actually,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Who organised that?
So I think Colette organised it. She works in the university. She's a lecturer there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a great plan, like to do that again,
Yeah, it
even
was.
if
Great.
there's very little time left, but
I know, yeah.
Well done anyway.
Side.
Well done, you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rosemary. It was good. I enjoyed it. Once I got over my nerves, I enjoyed it.
Wow.
But, so the no side was Ray Griffin, who's a lecturer there in, I think maybe politics and international relations. Something, I might have that slightly wrong now, but anyway, Ray Griffin is his name, and Mary Roach, who is she's with the Social Democrats. She's county councillor. You know, kind of, I think she's been
Never
involved in
heard.
politics for
Mm.
quite a long time. So yeah, so
Wow.
it was really interesting. You know, I felt even though, you know, I was just speaking from the perspective of a stay-at-home mother. I mean, I've been a stay-at-home mother for the past 18 years myself. You know, and I was really trying to focus on what I was the last person to speak, so I was really trying to focus on what the yes people were saying, trying to take notes and that, but I was also so consumed with the fact that I was about to have to talk myself. That it was kind of hard. But I actually really felt that they had very little solid, there wasn't really much solid to go on, you know. It was there's just so many what ifs and, oh, maybe this, maybe it's going to mean that, and aspirational ideas about what it's all going to mean, you know.
The durable relationship.
Yeah. But I think what we've
and the
learned
fact
is
that
that sorry. I think what we've learned is that we now know that they lie a lot, you know. They've been in government a long time. We now know, you know, sort of thing, that things can be dragged in through the back door without us being aware or whatever. And we also, our eyes are wide open to the lack of balance, fairness within any debate, you know, and the whole trans business has shut us down completely. You know, if anybody had reasonable concerns that wanted a reasonable debate, you know, without being called names. And so we've learned a lot. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, so I think all of these organizations really need to look at themselves, you know, because we're looking at them. So,
I don't think there's a lot of trust, you know, and I think another, you know, earlier last week I went into, I don't know if anybody else was there, but there was a panel discussion in Trinity might have been on the Tuesday maybe, or the Monday, I can't remember. Maybe it was the previous week.
Yeah,
it was.
I was meant to go to. There was one in UCD in the afternoon. Were you at that, Sabrina?
I was in the one at UCD.
Oh, you were at that, Sabrina, yeah.
I was at the one in UCD, not last week, but the week before, was on the 13th.
This was the same night.
I can tell you this, right? These are all educated women with doctors and whatever you have, which, by the way, means fecking nothing to me now these days. I swear to God, the more titles they have, the more stupid they get. Because one woman actually turned around and said, oh, I don't agree with the current wording, but I would like to come up with the words myself. And then we should vote yes.
Yeah, well, that's great.
And then another one's just like, I'm disgusted how this article in the Constitution has held women back. And I'm actually finishing editing an article about it, and I will be publishing it this week on the Women Are Speaking page about it, because I think every voter should know about what the yes side are saying. And they wouldn't let me record. I actually had a body cam on me with a recording video, and they told me that I will get the recording the following Monday, which would be Monday last week. And I still haven't received that recording. So I sneakily took voice recording. So I was like, the voice recording was very kind of, it's not very great to actually put it up on an audio because there's so much background noise going on. But I was still able to hear about it on when I was listening back, so I can write the article, because some of them had made very, very sneaky points that I was not going, these are pushing for this, but you don't agree with the wording. What on earth are you doing, you know?
Yeah, I've come across this, and I don't know if anybody else has, about the yes, no vote.
Yeah.
Because they want the language of what they think is old-fashioned, antiquated, not representing how modern women are and all this. And they want, you know, that removed. You know, the protection of the mother, don't seem to have a problem with mother being taken out of it, you know. That seems to be, you know,
but
cool.
What they were talking about in a lot of the cases, right? They were talking about how the government brought in the 1950s about women who got married had to give up work And I know my grandmother on my dad's side had to give up work. She worked in a solicitor's office, so she gave up work when she got married. But she was all like, my grandmother was also very Catholic, and she had 6 kids, and she also had to look after them. But my grandfather was working, and at that time you could afford to have one person out working,
Yeah.
and then have
Exactly.
someone
Yeah.
at home. Today, this is not the case, and that's a flaw in society. But
Mhm.
like, the thing is, in 1979, that all changed, you know, in
Yeah.
spite of this article in the Constitution.
Yeah. And
And
I mean, in the first place, it wasn't introduced after the Constitution put that in. That was nothing to do with the women not working. It was nothing to do with the Constitution. When it started, it ended. It didn't, it had they didn't coincide with the dates at all.
yeah, and then another speaker spoke about, oh, there in the last 100 years since the Irish government is set up, there's been over 1,000 men in power compared to 100. I think it was 113 or 114. I have it in the article, about how many compared to women. And I asked my husband, who's from the Netherlands, and I said, you tell me this, right? Like, has there been that many women in government in the Netherlands per se? And he's like, no, there hasn't. Like, it was like general society, even throughout Europe. Women didn't really start to get into politics, and I don't know. I would be saying probably in the last 50 years, just as a ballpark
Oh,
figure.
yeah.
I will have to do some research on that. It will actually be an interesting one to research, actually.
More like the past 30, more like 30, I'd say, more than anything, you know?
Yeah, but like, yeah, but like, I'm just talking about in Europe, there was a lot, the women were in politics away, a lot longer, I
Earlier.
suppose,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, what we're seen as progressive society, and we were seen as a backward, you know, sort of all, you know, and hard, but they've actually fixed it as well, because the women that worked in the civil service who got married and had to give it up, now they were discriminated against within their pensions. So, you know, they might have then had to give up. So they paid a pension within the civil service or whatever, up to a certain amount of money. And then when it came to their age, you know, sort of, well, it was 65. They've now keep changing, keep furthering it out, that the women were discriminated against about getting the full pension, contributing. They weren't getting it. But they've now included, they've changed that now. So 20 years of stamps are given, rightly so. This is perfectly right, that 20 years of stamps are given to those women. So they're entitled, you know, if they work then as well, you got X amount, say it's 224 or 54 stamps you need for a contributory pension. And so that brings them up so that they get what they're entitled to. So they're not dependent on their partner or husbands, you know, or he can claim as a codependent. So that has been sorted. So they're making this argument that it's all about the past. You know, we know what the past was. Do you know what I mean? We all know what the past was. I'm really interested in what they've turned women into now. You know, look what they've done to, you know, now. Look what they've done to us.
I also
you know?
find, you know, these women of power turning around telling us, you know, that we are oppressed in society. And I'm just like, I am so sick of it. You know, like they're in their highest honors of their fields and in whatever university that they're in, and like even like in TDs, and I'm like, you're telling me that I'm oppressed? I came from a family where my mother was self-employed with my father in a hardware store, for God's sake. Talk about crossing, and I'm going to say gender boundaries here, because you know, but like it's just preposterous the way they keep going on, and I'm just so sick of it.
Nobody
I cannot wait for the voting to fucking happen, so just get on with my life, you know.
Yeah, but I think
just
I said
going back. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, women, and what they've done now to women, you know, so they were really old-fashioned, staying at home and minding our kids and rearing our kids, and that's horrible, and you name it, and whatever, and we're just idiots. But that was, you know, years ago, you know, sort of thing, like, oh, do you only stay at home? Like, women were doing this to other women. You know?
I know.
Oh my God, you only stay at home. Oh God, you sit in your ass and you do nothing all day long. You know? Yeah, that's the way it works with a good few kids, you know. And now what they've done, they've imprisoned women. They don't even get a choice. Can't stay home. They have to go out to work. They have to put the baby in a creche at 7 a.m. They have to sit in a bus or car or whatever. They're doing everything now. So, yeah, that's extremely liberating, So anyway, don't get me on my hobby horse because I get really annoyed, because I watch my daughters and I think, oh my God, they're riddled with guilt. I'm not doing my job properly. I'm not doing my mothering properly. I'm not doing, proper being a wifey or whatever, partner, whatever you want to call it. All of these, house a bloody mess. God love them. I just say to them, oh my God, sit down, chill, Jesus, have a glass of wine, just relax.
Yeah, I remember feeling very guilty. My children are 32 and 27. My daughter's 32, my son's 27. And I remember, I used to get up in the morning, go to work, and I was paying the babysitter to look after my children, and it was like a mortgage. You think, well, paying it, and I felt so guilty about another woman raising my baby. And it was another thing, and Tracy might talk about this. I remember after I had my son, I'm divorced now, and my son was 9 weeks old. And no, he was born on the 30th of July, and I went back to work he was only 6 weeks. And I didn't breastfeed my daughter, right? But I breastfed my son. It was really difficult trying to breastfeed, but I got there, and I felt I really wanted to breastfeed. And I asked my son, he was self-employed, and I just said to him, because I paid the mortgage, I paid all the household bills, we were building the business, and I knew he had the money. I knew he had money, right? And I said, could you pay September's mortgage? Because I wanted to breastfeed for another month, at home. He said no. And I never, ever, I remember the pain, the hurt. And it was a Sunday, and I was supposed to go back to work that Monday. And I went out, and I said, can we just, instead of me paying the mortgage, could you pay the mortgage for 1 month? And the pain and the hurt that I felt, because it was, I was only just getting used to it. And I was going to work expressing the breast milk out into bottles, putting it in the freezer, putting it in the fridge. But, and I think that is so important, that bond with your children. And then I was driving to work every morning, and the childminder lived up the road. And I'm thinking, I was driving past her house on my way to work, thinking she's seen more of my baby than what I am, and she's feeding my baby the breast milk that came from my breast.
It's so bad, and that you can never get that back. Once, like, that month is nothing in your life, nothing. Like, it's nothing for anyone to give you. You should be given those months. There should be no guilt. There should be no if there should be nothing influencing that decision, especially not financial. And that clause remaining in the Constitution would be our only way, our only defense. I mean, if we take those clauses out, we can say wave goodbye to a lot of things that could be challenged on the basis of that clause, like children's allowance, maternity leave, lone parent allowance, disability payments, carers allowance, old folks home, the fair deal. I mean, there's so much riding on this constitutional change. And for them to even propose a constitutional change that hasn't presented a problem, when all the other problems in this country are going ignored, and there's excuse after excuse as to why the hospital waiting lists are getting longer instead of shorter as the country gets richer and richer. I mean, I never remember waiting lists in the 60s and 70s. We also got our bins emptied for nothing. This all was included in tax. Everything was included in tax. And we didn't have to sit in cars going to the shops. Our grocery man delivered everything. Our egg man delivered. Our bread man delivered. Our milk man delivered. And now women have to buy all that stuff, haul it home, unload it 3 or 4 times into your trolley, out of your trolley, onto the belt, into the car, out of the car, into the shelves. And that's all labor. Plus we're looking after granny, we're looking after mammy, we're looking after senile daddy, senile Auntie Mary, and looking after the babies. Plus we have a full-time job now as well. And now we're not even getting the credit as being the main carers in the families when we know we are the men. And everyone knows we're the main carers. And men have stepped up to the plate since the 60s, yeah. And my dad never picked up a baby or changed a nappy, and then neither did anyone else's dad. But nowadays, believe me, there's a big difference between making the dinner on a Sunday when all the ingredients are in the kitchen, you have a bottle of wine and 4 hours to cook it, or going to the fridge when you have a fiver to do you 2 days and you're looking at an empty fridge and thinking, how am I going to feed 4 people for 2 days on 20 quid or a fiver or whatever you have? So, I just think that the constitutional change is just, if we lose, if this is sold to the public the way it has been on a bunch of lies and a bunch of, oh, women don't want to be tied to the kitchen sink rhetoric that doesn't actually even say that in the Constitution. That's what really gets me, that they are selling this as if it says that and it doesn't, and they're doing a double cross on us. It's like a double cross, and it's on International Women's Day to just laugh all the way to the bank. Honestly, gets my gander up.
I have a question that with Tracy. That really, the thing, part of being a mother, for me personally, and the joy and the best thing I've ever done in my life, was feeding my babies to the best. Even though Hollis Street said I was killing one of them, so. What does it do for women to see a man, with chemicals, a man trying to, honestly, I can't even say the words.
I can't
say the words, because this idea to try to normalize, to take women out of the Constitution, mother, this most important role that we play for the good of society. It's mammies go chasing after the kids. Where are you? Sort of thing, like, you name it, when they're teenagers, keep an eye, from birth. But to feed the most nurturing, humane thing is, if you can, to the best of your ability, feed your baby.
To the best of your abilities, yeah.
Yeah, to have a man, surely, and yet nobody is screaming abuse. Nobody is screaming from, I mean, you're not allowed to slap your child,
Just to tell our listeners what you're talking about, what was publicized last week was transgender breastfeeding babies, chemically. I don't know. It's Tracy, what is it? Like the advertising promoting transgender men breastfeeding babies. What is, when I heard this, it made me skin crawl and made me want to puke and be in Puke City.
Yeah, it's when just before we went live, there's a very visceral reaction from women and from men. Like my own partner, when I shared this information with him last week, and I could tell by the look on his face, it was like any reasonable person that is, that saw what happened last week. And just for the background, it was a memo that was, leaked from an NHS trust, I think it was Sussex, saying that breast milk that is induced with hormones and various chemicals is, apologies for my dog snoring in the background, is comparative to the milk that a biological woman would produce. So I think when that came out, I think there was just a visceral reaction all over the internet about, like, okay, we need to just kind of, slow our roll a little bit, looking at, we've such low breastfeeding rates in Ireland. We have such low investment in Ireland. And I think, like, I talked to La Leche League counsellors and Quidju, lactation support, on a regular basis. And they're all really struggling with this at the moment, because they're being told that they have to change their language to chest feeding, which is anatomically incorrect, first of all. And that they are to open their doors to any person female or male, that is interested in lactation. So which means, like, because I think back to my breastfeeding experience with my my first little fella, and it's hard enough to just get yourself out the door to go to a breastfeeding meeting and with strangers, and then you're whipping your breast out and but to think that I could, if I was going to one today, that any random man who wants to go down this path of breastfeeding can sit there and be a part of what was always a really nurturing space for women. And I think what it will do is women will just not want to go, or they will sit there in huge discomfort because they have this person beside them. And we know that this is not always going to be about the partner wanting to nurture the baby. And I think that is where I think the skin crawling that you mentioned, Roisin, is so hard to understand, that babies have needs and babies have rights. And we know, like, the science is very clear that that human milk, as the World Health Organization talks about, they were never talking about male milk. They were always, it was always understood to be milk from a biological female. But when we look at, okay, so this substance that's being secreted, when we look at it, and there's a couple of papers, they're showing that the actual constituents of this milk is not completely dissimilar from someone who is relactating or a female partner, so a lesbian couple. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I understand that piece. So if they go through inducing lactation with the various drugs, and some of these drugs are not approved for breastfeeding and have been associated with cardiac issues. So as much as my husband would have loved to help me breastfeed, I think the very idea that he would have to take drugs that could potentially harm our child, there's not in a million years he would have, but I would have loved to help. Of course, I think in Ireland, when there's such high rates of women stopping breastfeeding before they wanted to, simply because they didn't get the right support and just or the right information, really starting from, and we're a bottle feeding society. So it is just, when we look at the actual constituents of the milk, it seems to be similar to biological breast milk. But we have to ask the next question that follows on from that is, but is that milk behaving in the same way as biological female milk would?
Yeah.
Because,
but Tracy, isn't it true though that women, when I breastfed 3 kids, that afraid to take an aspirine for a major headache or a mastitis or all of the nipples bleed, Jesus.
You're looking at your diabetes. I have that second. I have that second digestive. Or there's so much guilt, and we're like we beat ourselves up. And there's women who will not even take antidepressant medication, and will put themselves really through really significant challenges to protect their baby. The baby, mother and baby they're communicating with each other right from the moment of conception. They are sharing information, they're sharing chemical signals. So when the baby is born, the baby is expecting to be breastfed by the mother. And it's not just nutrition, this is a relationship. And because I know when we talk to moms who've had a really difficult time breastfeeding, and the idea of their partner could help out, I think everyone's like, yeah, absolutely, great. But when you actually kind of, take a little bit of a deeper dive into what does that actually mean? What does that mean for the health of the baby? What does it mean for the health of the mother? Because we know that there are significant health benefits to women who for reduced cancers. They're less likely to develop type 2 diabetes. So if now we are passing the baby to our partner, and we have to look at, if men really evolved to breastfeed, well, why didn't it happen? Why wasn't it a natural progression where it was a shared responsibility and a shared biological function? So it's so like when a baby is breastfeeding from the mother, they are communicating back and forth that maybe the baby is developing some kind of illness, that the mother's body picks up on that and will start to create antibodies to pass to the baby to protect the baby. So the baby may still get sick, but they wouldn't be as sick because they're getting these antibodies. So we really don't know if male milk is going to behave in the same way. So, and the whole mother-baby diet, we're supposed to be together, and it is that visceral reaction when, I've spoken to women this week. A really significant issue that's happening still in Irish hospitals is women who have a cesarean are not getting skin to skin immediately with their babies. So this is, and we have all of these audits that are happening all over the hospitals saying, oh, we're doing it. And then I have, 20 women contact me last week to say, no, I didn't get it. And it was an elective cesarean and there was nothing going on with the baby. There's no reason why I didn't get it. And women are begging for skin to skin. So we know that this idea of just being able to pass the baby to somebody else to breastfeed, it is definitely, it's almost a biological insult to the body that there's, we're supposed to be together with the, when, Niels Bergman talks about the baby going from, inside the mother to on the mother, that the baby and mother are supposed to be together. We know there's risks when we separate mothers and babies. So I think rather than going down the road of chest feeding and encouraging partners to start to, induce lactation with all these hormones and chemicals, that we put some bloody investment into women's breastfeeding in this country, and less into the formula industry, which does really well because of the agricultural sector in Ireland. So it's multifaceted, but I think anyone watching this, and if they're hearing it for the first time, I think you'll find quite a visceral reaction to, and we have to look at, we don't know if this is an experiment. We do not know the impact on these babies. And as a midwife, I've said this multiple times to other people who think that this should be normalized, that you have a safeguarding responsibility as part of your work to protect that baby. So we know without a doubt that breast milk is the recommended for the absolute optimal nutrition. It changes based on the baby's age. It changes on the time of day and what baby needs. But we're just literally throwing everything out just to satisfy a very small niche of men who want to affirm themselves that this is, I need to affirm my identity by nursing this baby at the breast. And I think that's why so many women find it so difficult to kind of wrap your head around that this is not about putting the baby's needs first at all.
Can I just, I don't know if you saw, sorry, I just have a couple of things. It's so interesting and so horrific, the whole thing. And speaking about our own visceral reactions to it, the BBC article about it, did everybody see the BBC? The BBC did a news piece about it. I thought it was very interesting that in all the there was lots of footage of babies breastfeeding in that little news piece. And of course, all of the footage was of women breastfeeding their babies. If they had put on some footage of a man chest feeding, whatever we want to call it, there would have been absolute outrage. But of course, that's not what they show. They're talking about this man, but they're showing all this beautiful footage of little babibies being breastfed by their mothers. And another thing I was wondering, Tracy, did you read Millie Hill's piece about it? Yeah, and I thought what she said when she delved into the research, that of the maybe 5 studies, I think, that they mentioned, say, on the BBC piece, 4 of those studies have been done on women who were using that protocol to stimulate breast milk. 1 of them had been done on a man. So the research even at that is being completely misrepresented.
And it was even questionable. It was questionable that, I think, for that one case study, that that man's partner was breastfeeding.
Exactly. That it wasn't her milk.
They didn't know if the breast milk had come from the mother or the father as
So there's
Exactly.
one iffy case. Is the whole thing is based on one iffy case?
But it was
One.
interesting that, Millie Hill went and did all that research. Why didn't the BBC do that research? She came up with that in one day. Why weren't the BBC actually properly researching this issue? That was a really, I can't
Yeah.
imagine they had anything about that before. So this was a new issue, and they would have known it was going to be a big deal and get a big response, but they haven't done their research.
Is this
at
all
all.
being tied into, the removal of the word mother, the watching of, sort of thing like, I'm a male, but I call myself Mary, and I can breastfeed a baby, sort of thing, and the durable relationship. So nobody has any name, nobody has any identity of any description. So we're all just meshed into this.
We're not men, we're not women, we're just
We're not anything. We're not.
we're
No
all, yeah.
starting, as Tracy said, about a baby. I mean, I feel so passionate about this. Honestly, I've never been so upset to see this horrendous abuse of a baby. To me, it's abuse.
Yeah.
This is abuse of the highest order, and I worry. And I, rightly so, people are marching in O'Connell Street for babies being murdered in faraway countries, and yet we as women, sort of thing like, what is wrong? What is happening to our brains that we're not, screaming? How dare you? This is, you get away from us.
I'm not a
alone,
mother, I'm not a mother myself, and I was absolutely totally outraged. Like, I am an aunt to, and a grandaunt, and a great grandaunt. Thanks to my husband's side of the family, But I'm just like totally outraged, And I said to my husband the other day when he told me this story, I was just like, "You're having a laugh, are you? Was this a Water for Whispers news article?" And he's like, "No, this was an NHS thing." And I'm like, I was sitting there like, I like this, that Scream picture going. Going. I said, if I ever see a man try to breastfeed a child, I would take that baby off them and hit them with my walking stick. For God's sake, it's child abuse. Stop doing it.
But Tracy, can I ask you? My youngest daughter asked me this. She had, she was her baby's only 6 months old, and she breastfed, and it all went wrong for her. She went downhill. The baby was going downhill. And then the recommendation, as you well know, is, give her a bottle, sort of, and whatever. And so we were talking, because my eldest daughter had so much milk that she was giving it to Hollis Street, to feed the preemie babies. And so we had this discussion. So I'd love to ask you, if I don't mind, because, I was too lazy and tired to look it up. Anyway, I don't understand the medical side of it. She was saying, why is it allowed then, because it came up about this, whatever it was, man, for this milk that you could give, like it used to be in my day, they were called what were they called? Nursing mother, not nursing mothers. Yeah, that a baby could be given from, a posh lady who didn't want to do it, who gave it to a poor lady who was having baby after baby and loads of milk. But the milk going to the preemie babies, what she wanted to know, what the difference was, say that her milk could have gone, somebody else could have given her milk to her baby, breastfeeding milk.
There is a kind of a movement of milk sharing within mothers in Ireland as well, and around the world, where it's usually a relative, someone that and that you have an understanding of what their history is, medical history, that there's nothing there, and again, I was milk sharing, I would want to make sure everyone's been tested and I know what my baby is getting. But what's interesting is, so a lot of women in Ireland will just brilliantly, if they have extra, they will send it to the milk bank up the north. And it was interesting, like I remember reading that if for any women who did placenta encapsulation, so they encapsulated their placenta after birth and took it as a supplement after birth, that the milk bank won't take that milk.
Oh.
Now I wonder, will they take this new kind of milk?
No.
Yeah, the highly chemical milk, yeah.
Well, it seems
No.
they
I
can't
had
make
a
enough
baby.
milk to feed one baby with
You
like one
couldn't, you
feed a
couldn't.
day, you know, I mean,
But
so
if
it
I
sounds
have a
like,
baby in,
Did
if
I
I have a baby in
express
critical
milk?
care, are they getting milk from
Oh,
what? Where is the milk coming from? I would want to know that.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
So-
mm.
And
Do
this
they-
kind of has
I
made it to
expressed-
Ireland yet. We don't know of this is, you know, I haven't seen anything from the HSE that says, yes, we are promoting male breast milk as the, you know,
No.
equivalent of biological female milk. So,
Mhm.
but there is definitely pressure at the moment for the
Mhm.
voluntary organizations to adapt their language, to remove breastfeeding, to remove mother, it's just, you know, chest feeding individuals. And they're really, really worried about this. And midwives that I'm really would be of the same kind of vein that we really need to be very, very careful and look at really the what is happening here with you know the benefits for the mother for breastfeeding, the benefits for the baby, and we just don't have that information now to just say, yeah, it's a free for all.
Mm. Yeah, and that's scary. That's scary, you know, sort of thing that it could be, you know, and if anything is going to put off a new mother, you know, and breastfeeding is, you know, sort of this idea, you know, this horrible idea that a man could be, you know, and or as you say, going into a Lecce League, you know, sitting, you know, or if you're having difficulties with breastfeeding. So but it does make, you know, like we were trying to decide over the weekend, I'm trying to bring my daughters around, you know, like, but trying to decide what is this. See, they think I'm a conspiracy theorist, you know, like, why is this all happening? The removal of the word old-fashioned is in the house, do you know? But okay, put in a man, put in father of the children in there, or woman, whatever the hell, you know, keep it. Why take out?
Not because I guess where my opinion would be that there's a bigger play here, and it is the breakdown of society, the breakdown of cultural norms. That if we remove, you know, the mother and baby relationship, we protect our babies. If we take mother out of that, what happens to our babies? What happens to our children?
Yeah.
And that's for another week, because you want to have a strong stomach for that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this referendum is being pushed by Europe. Ireland's been given an ultimatum that they have to get this passed, like a few others, you know, and we'll keep voting until we vote the right way, because they need this. And I don't know why, but Europe needs this to be passed, to get rid of labels like man, woman, mother, father, and to make everything neutral. Everyone's going to be neutral. Nobody's going to have a sex. And it's to push some kind of equality / transhumanism agenda that's coming down the line that they're expecting. Because I even heard, and I don't know why, I mean, Elon Musk, you'd think he'd have more sense now. I admire him for buying Twitter because of the free speech issue. But I heard him talking in a debate, and he was talking about, now, I don't know, I have a very first year college, I did biology in the Leaving Cert. I'm sure plenty of people did biology in the Leaving Cert. So you did a bit of genetics, you did a bit of, you know, meiosis and mitosis, you did a bit of respiration, a bit of, you know, a bit of everything, right? So there's no real depth. It's very shallow. Everything's shallow. Genetics, but it's definitely how you get an XY and an XX, and they're definitely chromosomes. You look them under a microscope, you can see which is a man, which is a woman by just looking under the microscope. You don't need to be trained. You just look, and if you see an XX, it's a woman. If you see an XY, it's a man. They're visibly two chromosomes. One is two long ones in a woman, a long one and a short one in a man. That's how you know the difference between a man and a woman's cell under a microscope. You don't need anything else, right? So I don't know. Also, you have to have a womb to have anything to do with womb diseases. You have to have a cervix to have cervical cancer. You have to have a uterus to have a uterine disease. These seem to me to be basic biological facts that you don't need any in-depth or big brain or intellect to understand. These are very simple concepts that were taught to me in the 70s in school, not in college, in school, up to the junior cert, up to the leaving cert. This is basic biology. Now, why is that not being taught? Because you couldn't mistake one for the other. How can you mistake a man and a woman if one of them has a baby and the other one has a willy that inseminates a woman? There just can't be a confusion.
That's the way I got my sex education in the 70s.
I mean, if you look at a dog, a woman dog, a female dog has puppies. If you have a male and a female dog, they're going to have puppies unless you get them spayed. You don't need to be a biologist. You don't need to be a vet. You don't need to be anything. You just need to be about 6 years old on a farm, and you can see a sheep, you can see a bull, a cow. Everyone is the exact same. The humans are exactly the same. So for us to come along now in this day and age when I'm over 60 and try and tell me that the care of a baby is the same if it comes out of your body or if it's... A man can have 20 babies he doesn't even know about. A woman can't have not even one baby she doesn't know about.
Well,
and it comes out of your body. Your whole body changes. Your hips get wider. Your hormones change. Your sphincter muscles change. You get heartburn because of all this. Your fat redisposes. As soon as you start breastfeeding, you get severe pain in your womb because your womb is going back the way it went to squeeze that baby out. Like those balloons that you pull straight? You know those huge balloons you used to blow up and you could bounce on them? They're like those orange yolks, those moon yolks, and you can pull the balloon straight. Well, that's the same as a womb. So when your baby breastfeeds, that intense pain the first time you breastfeed, and the nurse brought me in 2 Panadol and 2 glasses of water on a tray the first time I breastfed. And I sat there going, how did she know that I was just about to trample over a crowd to get at a glass of water? And I was in severe agony because my womb, felt like I was having a baby again. But I breastfed Sam for 13 months and I was pregnant with Kim and breastfeeding Sam. And then I breastfed Kim for 10 months. And every time you breastfeed your womb, your body goes, okay, the baby's not in there anymore, so I'll squeeze the womb a bit more. And so your stomach goes completely flat again. That's what happens when you breastfeed. So that's why this is all connected to having a baby, breastfeeding a baby, oxytocin, hormones, the lot. It's all related. The sterilization of the nipple before the baby. You don't have to sterilize anything if you breastfeed your baby. You don't need Milton. You don't need bottles. You don't need any Milton, teats, nothing. You don't need to. I breastfed because I was broke. I couldn't afford the equipment to breastfeed, to bottle feed. I was too broke. So I decided to buy myself loads of bars of Cadbury's Fruit and Nut, giant bars, put them in the fridge. That's all I could afford. And then I could breastfeed day and night and be pregnant and breastfeed at the same time and still work and go to the market at the weekends and do all the things that I was doing up till, the end.
What were you doing with the chocolate?
I was eating it to keep the calories up.
Oh, right.
I couldn't keep the calories on.
I thought you were giving it to the baby.
No, I just had to keep eating. I had to eat 24 hours a day to breastfeed a baby. And still, I was in Holles Street and Sam didn't feed initially. And I was in semi-private. Is that what you call it? Yeah. Semi-private. So I did a dual. You could do, when you're pregnant, you can do dual. My dad had me under VHI because, he's a pharmacist. Everyone, the whole family has VHI until the day he died. You know what I mean? And every health insurance and all that. So I went in under public and semi-private into Holles Street. So I had the best of both worlds. So I had a variety of consultants in the hospital under the public scheme. So, and then when I went in, I was, did they induce me though? They induced me for Kim. I think they thought I was over for Sam by 13 days, but I think no, they thought I was under, but I think I was over. But when I went in anyway, I was in semi-private and Sam wouldn't feed. And they put him into the ICU unit because he wouldn't feed and I wouldn't bottle feed him. So they said they were going to observe him. So they'd have to take all his clothes off. And to do that, they'd have to put him in an incubator. So I said to Mum, he was born on the Friday and he hadn't fed he wouldn't feed off my breast by 10 o'clock that night. So they were saying to me, you should just bottle feed him. And I was like, no, I don't think I should. So they said, well, then we'll have to put him into an incubator and observe him. And so they observed him for 2 days. And then on the Sunday, they said, I was expressing the whole time. And I was getting, I had 2 of those electric breast pumps on my boobs, and they were strong. My nipple was shooting out to about here. It was unbelievable. But you were getting loads of milk, in there, and the lovely, because I was semi-private, I was getting these trays and trays of water brought to me and Panadol and loads of attention, like 2 or 3 or 4 nurses helping me. So I rang my mother on the Sunday. I think I told this story before. And I said, Mum, he won't breastfeed, but if I let him bottle feed, they'll let him take me home tonight, which was 2 days later. And she said, what age is he now? And I said, well, he's 2 days old. And she said, 2 days old and he's getting his own way already. Sure, he'll be smoking by the time he's 10. And I was like, Mum, stop, don't be so mean, But anyway, he fed that night. So it was grand. And I breastfed him, but they did all the tests on the Monday anyway, because they thought there was something wrong with him, but they couldn't find anything wrong with him. They let me go home on the Thursday when they found out that I wasn't. They thought I was a heroin addict because I was hanging around with a girl that was a heroin addict in there. I didn't know she was a heroin addict, but she had her baby in the ICU as well. So I was in this private ward with another woman that had lost her baby. So it was 3 women. So I was only talking to her because she was the only other woman that was talking, And then I found out that she left the hospital in the middle of the night on the 3rd night when her boyfriend came in and went home. And the next day, the HSC came and took her baby, I think, or there was a lot of crying anyway. It was very sad and everything. But I think they thought I was, because when they got the results from my blood tests, they treated me completely different because they couldn't do the tests over the weekend. And I was going up expressing my milk. They thought I was an abusive mother. And they treated me like shit in the ICU. So then when they got all the results from all the blood tests and realized I wasn't a heroin addict, because they asked me, this Chinese doctor brought me into a room and said, have you been taking drugs? And I said, no. And he said, we can test your milk. And I said, I know, I'm expressing it and giving it to you every day. I know. That's why I'm staying in the hospital for 7 days instead of going home, with my baby on the Sunday, which I could have. You told me I could have with a bottle feed, with a bottle. So on the Thursday following that, I was there for 6 days, but eventually they had done all the tests. So I eventually went home with a brilliant score on Sam, and the consultant said that his baby had been the exact same at the beginning and they never found anything wrong. And then when Kim was born, she was forceps because the cord was wrapped around her neck. So I went in, I was induced because my waters broke. And I think it was a day over or a day under or something. And then they used the forceps and I was shaking like a leaf. I'll never forget it. I wanted them, Declan was saying, give her something to stop her shaking, because I was like this, because they pulled the baby away so quickly and I thought that she was dead or something, because it was only half an hour after the epidural. So then they said, we'll have to bring you down to do to get the placenta out. a D&C or whichever you call it. So they were, because I had just had the epidural, they said she won't be able to deliver the placenta, you know, because she has no muscle, she has no power. And I was there going, watch this. And I just went, and the placenta landed on your man like that, big bloody mess on his chest. Because he just told me I couldn't push out. Now, so then I went over and they were telling me, oh, you can't have a shower. And Kim fed immediately, you know, she was right to my breast, fed immediately. So after this traumatic delivery and the forceps and the, you know, they were saying, oh, she must have been skipping in there. It's the longest umbilical cord we've ever seen, you know. But then she fed immediately. And then I went in and they were saying, where are you going now? And I said, I'm going to have a shower. And they were like, you just had the epidural. You can't stand on your feet. And I was like, of course I can stand. And I stood up out of the bed and I go into the shower. And you know the showers, they have one here and one down here. They have 2 showers in each cubicle, but none of them go above your head. Did you notice that? In Hollis Street?
Yeah.
The showers aren't above your head. There's one at chest level and there's 2 squirters. There's one at chest level and there's one at around your knees. And they squirt in those directions. So I had to squat down and up to rinse my hair, you know, and the shampoo and the conditioner out of my hair. This is less than an hour after I've had the baby. And they were like, how can you do squats in the shower after getting the epidural like an hour ago? And I was like, you can't put a good woman down. Like, but I'm just like, my muscles are so strong. Like, I swear to God, like the doctors are always telling me that.
Isn't it true? And that was something I remembered. As soon as you give birth, you forget the pain. You forget anything to do with the birth. You're just overwhelmed with this absolute love that you have for a baby. And, you know, Mother Nature kicks in. And, you know, we were talking about on the other videos too, as well, that instinct between mother and baby that no man will ever have. You know, you wake up a couple of seconds before the newborn baby wakes up for feed or has a dirty nappy or emotion or, you know, is hungry or has colic. Like the mother, as a mother, you instantly, that intuition, that ESP, you wake up before the baby, even just a couple of seconds, you know.
But I wonder though why, just because it's so recent in my life, you know, because I believed when I was young, and it worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it worked for me. And I wonder what is happening in hospitals, because I gave birth through yoga and I believed in it 100%. So I think if you believe in something, it's going to work for you, you know. And because of the traumatic experience I had with my first child, I won't go into it, but however, so I decided I'm going to do this myself. So it was, you know, so I do remember one nurse saying, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm breathing, you know, and breathing through the pain. And she said, oh, sure, I'll let you at it, you know, I'll leave you alone. So there was no interference, no, nothing. And it has become, you know, so it was quite, you know, organic, really. And now it is, from my daughter's experience, which is very new, it seems that it has been literally a shit show, horror after horror story of, and I am really shocked by that, literally shocked.
Our birth trauma rates at the moment are,
oh my God, yeah, I would say my daughter,
they're about 80%, but we know that are much higher. There was a couple of studies that came out recently from the Rotunda that I've, you know, I'm sure if anyone from the Rotunda is looking in, they'll I'm sure they're sick of me tweeting about them. But just there was a one of the papers that they published was, and you can, even the title of it was about their cesarean rate has increased by, I think, 38% in the last 10 years. So when this paper was coming out, I think their induction rate was 30, or cesarean rate was 39%, I think. But the paper, they actually said in it that it was perfectly justifiable. So that was the first paper. And then the second paper that came out, that again, there was no fanfare about this, because I have been on this issue about the induction home trial that the Rotunda we're running, and we're targeting young women during COVID who did not have partners with them. They were calling women at home to like such unethical ways to run a trial. They gave themselves ethical approval, so it would not have passed any ethical review board. And this, when the results came out, it showed that physiological birth was shorter, less cesarean. So women who went into spontaneous labor. So they were able to show quite clearly that women who are induced, especially first-time mothers, and that's what they were targeting, were more likely to have a much longer labor and more likely to have a cesarean birth. Now, we know that induction is associated with more instrumental births as well, but they didn't give us that information, or postpartum hemorrhage or anything meaningful that women would like to know if they're going to choose induction. But the like kind of bottom line was, this is a great tool to stop, so that we can manage the labor ward better. Completely ignoring the fact that spontaneous labor has much better outcomes for mothers and babies. So this is the lay of the land right now. And unless women can self-advocate for themselves in labor, get a doula to be with you during labor and stay out of the system as long as you can. We know that women who are admitted into labor, into hospital before about 4 or 5 centimeters, are more likely to have unnecessary intervention, more likely to have an unplanned cesarean. So since COVID, the maternity services in Ireland have just gone downhill. And
that's what it seems. That's what, and I would say, I go so far as saying, Tracy, that I could see my youngest daughter, like the stress, the trauma that she went through, and she's kind of not somebody, that is very good at talking about it, or, I keep bringing it up, sort of thing, like this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be the case, and what's happening in maternity hospitals. But from the very get-go, for even to get into the hospital, she said it was like something out like a war zone. What you would imagine that she has seen in a war zone. In the reception area on a Sunday, nobody at reception. You couldn't get past those doors, no matter what level of pain you were in, or what level, of dilation. So you had women, she said, on the floor screaming. There was blood. So she got so distressed that she said to her partner, "Take me out of here. I don't care where. We'll have the baby in the car. I don't care. I want to get out. Just, get out." So this is unbelievable. This is 2000.
What hospital was that? Or do you want to?
I don't think it actually. It's
Don't mention it.
Don't mention it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was.
I just find that so terrible.
Across the board, I think it doesn't really matter, sort of thing, like where it is. But that trauma, so that was the beginning of the trauma, and it just continued. And you know what, Tracy, that really frightens me, and whether they'll go again, that's, I have no interference with that. Nobody could make a decision. Do you know? No. So has in your experience, senior midwives been taken out of the picture to be allowed, or are they afraid to use their voices? Because that's what her partner took from it, that he was, observing and watching, didn't know what the hell was going on, but that nobody could make a decision, a serious decision of what to do with her. Do you know what I mean? So, because things got very complicated.
No, there's definitely a cohort of midwives, and I have huge respect for the fact that they have stayed within the system to make a difference within the system. But their backs are against the wall. They're really copped between a rock and a hard place, because it's an obstetric-led system. So, and it's another reason why the whole maternity strategy nonsense has not progressed, because the recommendations were, we're going to open all of these midwife-led units and have them in every maternity unit, and women will have access to water immersion and all of these great tools, and we've got a couple of pools in, but a lot of midwives are afraid to have women in a deep bath compared to the normal bath. And so you've got midwives who are really doing the best they can, or there's a saying called doing good by stealth. So they're kind of under the radar. But you also have you know, a huge number of very institutionalized midwives who have themselves been traumatized. So they've experienced vicarious trauma by just working in Irish maternity units. So they are desensitized to really shitty care that's been given women. And when we're at that point where the midwives are desensitized, like who's going to look after me in labor? I want someone that's going to be kind and compassionate, and so there's just,
you know what? I don't remember talking to either I don't remember any midwives in either of my children's births at all. I don't remember talking to the midwives. I don't remember the consultant's name in either, and I think I might have had the same consultant. I don't remember any of it, and I know it's not because of my memory. I know I had absolutely zero. I don't even remember being introduced to the midwife. I think I remember with Sam, but I was in the delivery room for 6 minutes, and that's how long I was talking to the midwife for literally the 6 minutes I was in for Sam, and I didn't make it to the delivery room for Kim because I had a forceps delivery. So I didn't have a midwife for Kim. So I had one midwife for 6 minutes in both of my children's births. So that's all. So there was no midwife. And that was,
if you have
that was
something
normal.
like a really good experience like I did.
What's a midwife do? I mean, I don't know what they do.
But I had they videotaped me on my last child, because I did it through yoga and laughing, joking, you know, with my best mate beside me, laughing and joking.
Is this at home?
Yeah, no, in the hospital.
Oh my God.
All very cool, and there was all very relaxed and very, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I do. I do it through yoga, and this works.
Gladys, don't think that, because when you were bringing this up earlier, the idea, oh, it's a bit woo, whatever. There's actually really good evidence that
yoga's amazing, yeah.
Meditation, hypnobirthing can calm that stress response in the body, so that you can get your head out of the way and let your body get on with giving birth to your baby. And all those.
But they were very, and this was now, Circa was born in 1987, so this was very. The midwives around me were very cool. This is okay. This is what you're doing. So we're going to be cool with you. So there was we'll have none of that nonsense as one, you know, on my other daughter, and we'll have none of that nonsense. And I said, yes, you will, because I'm doing this nonsense. So shag off, you know. And so they just left me alone. But it was much more positive. This is what she's doing. Let's see how this works. And because they said they had, first of all, I also said that my best friend was the father of the child. I didn't know, but I was going to be thinking 1924 that this could actually be the shite, you know. And we were just having a laugh, you know, because we got on really well. So there was a combination of being completely relaxed, knowing what I was doing. That's, I think, you know, and I thought, I know, and this is what I wanted to ask you as well. Sorry for taking up, but what is this business of cutting women? I had none of that, you know, episiotomy, none of that, no intervention whatsoever of big babies. And I'm only 5 foot tall. So I had very big babies. I don't know, maybe I was designed this way or
I think that's part of it. But no, the episiotomy is a surgical cut. To imagine that's the perineum. It's a surgical cut, usually kind of this way or down, normally mediolateral. The rates are going down, but there's still way too many episiotomies happening. And some women haven't even been told they've had an episiotomy.
Well, so, that happened to my eldest daughter,
And it's, but it is, I think, for anyone having a hospital birth, you really need to have some written birth preferences and talk them through beforehand, and make sure that whoever is with you on the day has gone through these preferences with the midwife and everyone's on the same page. And, you know, we absolutely do not consent to an episiotomy without a compelling clinical reason. Maybe for if we needed to use a forceps, which again we shouldn't be seeing high numbers of forceps. But women don't realize when you go into the Irish system, you're on the clock. And we're going to push you through the system and use whatever medications we need to push you through the system, because we're thinking about bed management. and we're thinking about litigation. So I think it's quite a gut check, I think, when I talk to mothers in Ireland, that very little of the care that they receive in labour is evidence-based. So the minute they walk in the door, they're put on the monitor. The monitor is associated, continuous monitoring is associated with increased cesarean rates, increased instrumental births. We reduce women's mobility. It creates additional stress in the room. And all of the guidelines internationally say this machine should not be within 60 feet of a healthy well, and even a woman with a complicated pregnancy, unless she's on Syntocinon. So if she's on that Pitocin artificial hormone, then we need to monitor extra. But we don't realize that it's the care that women get in labor here. We assume, like if you were going for oncology care or any other kind of care, we make the assumption that, well, of course, it's going to be based on like best practice and international evidence. But in Ireland, it's very much focused on avoiding litigation. Not
And every country, surely every country now is like that.
Can I ask a question?
Is it not?
No, not so much. The US and Ireland have some of the highest litigation rates, California in particular.
Why Ireland? Because we don't even have solicitors here.
There's huge payouts, there's huge claims for babies that are born with poor outcomes. They may have been oxygen deprived at birth. Huge claims, huge payouts. But I mean, again, like we come down to kind of, the physiology. For the most part, when we're looking at a baby that has had fetal distress or, reduced oxygen, generally that has happened before labor. So the fact these court cases proceed and then assuming that this was a cerebral insult that happened during the labor process is actually quite controversial. So for the most part, it happens long before labor. So the fact that there's questions about labor being mismanaged, which of course we know happens, more than it should. Look at Portlaoise and all of the other hospitals where we have, women and babies.
Why are we not copying Denmark or Finland or somewhere where there's excellent labor or maternity? Why are we not copying the good guys?
But Rosemary, those countries have midwife-led care as their primary.
Wow.
So
why are we not copying them?
Because
it's crazy.
Because turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Consultants do not want to give up their paycheck.
They're big paychecks.
Can I ask a question?
Oh my God.
Can I ask a question? My sister gave birth to a really beautiful baby girl there about 6 months ago. And she had to have a cesarean. But before that, because she has gestational diabetes, she had to be induced because she was coming up to her time. And and she was in a hospital, one of the ones you mentioned. I won't say the name, but so she was then she had to go. She actually gave it her all for over 24 hours, but apparently the baby went into distress. And that was the reason why they were telling her to have a cesarean, which is fair enough. But she was I was just texting her there because you were mentioning about skin to skin contact, which is important for inducing breast milk. But she said there wasn't much skin to skin contact because of all the drugs that she was on because of the cesarean, and they were nervous that she might let the baby drop and things like that. Now she did get the baby on her chest for a little bit after she'd given birth, and then when the baby was crying, she couldn't really do much because like drugs and stuff. So she was like, oh, tut 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 tut, with sounds, so the baby could recognize it was her, and that seemed to calm the baby down. But I was just wondering about complicated cases like gestational diabetes, and is an inducement an absolute must, or should they have waited?
Well, I don't know the clinical picture, but the evidence would not support induction if the mother's blood sugars have been well managed. So whether that's diet and exercise, then because at that point she doesn't actually have gestational diabetes if her blood sugars are normal. So, but in Ireland, it is very much okay, your gestational diabetes, we're going to induce you, you know, before you reach 40 weeks. And because this baby's going to be too big, ask them for the evidence. There is no evidence that inducing for a mother who has gestational diabetes and has well managed is going to improve outcomes for the mother or baby. And we know that these babies who have, if they have this drop in blood sugars, because now they're disconnected from mom's blood supply, the best way to regulate that baby's blood sugars is skin to skin with the mother as much as possible.
Yeah.
That will regulate baby's blood glucose, baby's temperature, respiration. Again, we're biologically designed to be with our babies, and that should have facilitated that, because simply because she was she had medication on board. There should have been somebody there to help her, or if she had a partner or someone to help do skin to skin with the baby, even if the baby wasn't interested in feeding, or if someone had not planned on breastfeeding, that skin to skin is really, really important. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not happening across the board. And I'm sorry, but these hospitals that say, oh, we're doing audits and we're all good. I mean,
They're
are the
faking
women
it.
I'm talking to, are they lying? Like
I doubt it.
No.
I very much doubt it. Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, when you think about it, what we've talked about from the beginning of the show, you know, about, you know, the everything from the referendum to how women have been treated, and to even down to motherhood and giving birth now to our children has really, really become very cynical. I know I'm very cynical about
it's been hijacked.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, does Ireland and the state, does it respect women? Does it even like women? I put that up on Twitter the other day. Does it even like women? And it's about, and this is why I love, you know, I love the Countess, the Wicklow for Women, and, you know, Women Are Speaking, and even the Let Women Speak groups and all the groups, because we women of Ireland are claiming back our roles as women and as mothers. And if it isn't for us even all standing up individually and as groups, we are really saving the future of women and children and babies in Ireland. And I'm just in awe of all of you ladies for doing what you do. And it's really, really, unless we do it, and we, the ordinary women of Ireland, stand up, show up, stand up and speak up for the innocent babies. Because this is innocent babies we're talking about. And the most natural thing in the world is between a mother and a baby and giving birth and knowing the difference between male and female. And
yes. And if not us, who? And if not when? If not now, when? That's my thing. Like, if we can't stand up for women, like people say to me, why do you care? And I'm like, well, if I don't care, who's supposed to care?
Yeah.
If I don't fight for women, who's supposed to fight for them?
Yeah.
Who are we going to leave it to?
My reply is, why don't you care?
Yeah.
Well,
I think
ladies,
as
we're
well,
gonna have to
it's
wrap it up. Sorry, Catherine, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, one of the things that that came up in the debate and that people say regularly, and it's just coming to mind now when we talk about women being, you know, treated so badly over the years, is that people keep saying, well, you know, in terms of the referendum, you know, this Article 41 has never done anything for women. And I think, you know, even with that article there, Ireland has treated women so poorly. So why would we remove that article and just give the state even, you know, less obligation to us? If they haven't treated us well with that there, why on earth do women think that they're going to treat us better with nothing?
Yeah, why is that a good argument to remove it? Like, why is that a good argument to remove? Why would you say that? Like, about
people
anything?
Say it all the
like,
time. Yeah.
Like, they've treated us like shit, so why do we even care about being treated like shit?
And it's not the formation of the state. Women were airbrushed out of the photographs of the 1916 and the War of Independence.
Yes, they were.
Ban. Then you had the mother and baby homes. You have Panellist.
You have the tune, you have the cervical screening, you have
screening. And what was it even last year? It was taking the word mother, wasn't it, out of the maternity? What was that again? Just remind our viewers about
the HSC. They took the word mother from the surgical the surgical advice section of the HSE, they removed the word woman, and they took the word mother out of the maternity and breastfeeding sections of the website as well.
Was that with the
The word.
Maternity Act, I think you're talking about, Roisin,
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah, was that it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but it wasn't successful. They wanted to replace mother with person, I think.
Yeah, I think somebody kicked
or
up. I
woman
think
with
was Sarah Holmes involved in that, maybe? I think she was involved in that, was
So
she?
that was to do with the National Women's Council. She had some conflict with them
No,
about
but I think
questioning them about
I
why
think
were they not speaking up and asking about it.
somebody put their foot down about the mother being
That was
removed from
Anne. What's her name? Anne.
Conway.
Conway.
Oh, right, okay.
But I think
Wow.
it's something, ladies, that we have to all unite. The women of Ireland have to unite. And what I love about the groups that we're all in is we're women from all different backgrounds, all different opinions, very strong, independent, spirited women, all, you know, we all have different opinions, political, social, economic. We all voted different in different other referendums, but we're all united in this referendum. We're all united in maintaining the dignity and honour, integrity of women and babies and children.
And thank you very much, everyone here, because I really know that the more people that talk about it, it just gives weight to, it just gives a license for everyone else to speak up, because that's just the way things are. You know, you need the stander-uppers, and then you need the other people join them, because some people, like, that's all it takes is usually one person to stand up against an idea, and a little bit of resistance is often enough for anything. If you put your hand up a little bit and say, no, you can't do that to me, it usually works. Surprisingly.
Imagine in 1924, Jesus, there's a Freudian slip, 20, whatever we are, Jesus, whatever, 2024, that that things are going backwards. It's hard to really imagine that we've less, whatever you might think of the old-fashioned way, the mother in the home. Say, if we actually believe that was what was said, which is not, we know it's not exact what it meant, for the greater good.
You know what? I'm so disappointed in Leo Varadkar. I cannot believe that the government that he has led, and he seems to be always there in the background. And I don't know whether he has no regard for family, whether he has no regard for his mother, whether he has no regard for women, whether he hates women. But since he started getting a little bit of power, and I don't know whether it's him on his own, but there's a lot of them in it, and they egg each other on.
Well,
but
I think they're
honestly,
all together.
it's been so anti-women since we have not voted a government in. We seem to be getting these governments we don't vote for. We voted for Sinn Féin majority last, and they're not even near the government. They're the only party that are not in power now.
But
women in politics do not bring up the boats, though, either. They turn into the men that you don't like. And why does that happen?
Because Animal Farm always happens.
Because they have to hang on to their power, and they can't, so they do this protective thing around themselves to be worse.
But the way, like, why is the family suddenly not important to?
There's a question. Very
weird, because in America, if you don't have a wife and children and no divorce, no scandal, I mean, you will not get elected. You have to be family man, you have to be religious, you have to be squeaky clean, no nothing anywhere. And yet in Ireland, we thought we were doing a great job getting this gay man into power. We were going to have all this equality, and he was going to see things from a different point of view, and the bye-bye to the patriarchy. And I mean, if we couldn't have walked into a trap like Egypt, like blindfolded idiots, and now I don't know whether I don't know why he's getting away with it. That's what I don't know.
I say you know what I say? I say we have no, and we'll wrap it up. We have no opposition. We have no political opposition.
Sorry, I'm going all political. Cut that out.
Had the mandate to create a government. They refused the mandate. They didn't want the responsibility back in 2020. And so then they left it to the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to set up a government. Sinn Féin refused it in 2020. Now
Yeah, I
they've
know
added
that.
in
But
2024.
the thing is, that means that there's not even a pretension of democracy going on.
But I
Well,
will say
And then,
something on a humorous level, that when somebody said about this, vote, as I said, that thing I went to, so vote no and yes, or yes and no, get it wrong. And then Sinn Féin came out and said, do you know something? If it gets a yes, we'll redo the whole thing, right? Another 20 million, because, there's loads of cash under the bed. Another 20 million, and we put a few words in it that suits us. I mean, how nuts can things get? Do you know?
Well, maybe we need a
great.
women's party.
yes.
Absolutely, we need a women's party,
definitely.
proper, strong women.
Roisin for Taoiseach.
We know economics. We
Roisin for Taoiseach.
know the shooting gallery. We know economics. We know the whole. There isn't an area that we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just we just have to stick together.
The North had a women's coalition party. The time the North had Monica McWilliams was in it, and then after the Good Friday Agreement, then they dissolved. But the Women's Coalition Party in the North were absolutely brilliant.
Can you imagine a party with all of us women in it? And like, if you look at the women in politics, whether you agree with them or not, the ones that knew their facts, know their dates and everything, are all women. Claire Daly, even though you might hate Mary Lou, she knows her onions. And Claire Daly knows her facts. There's nothing she doesn't read off a sheet. She knows everything inside out. And I know American women that love her, and I wouldn't even know that she'd be on their radar. But I always admire Claire Daly. I think she has, and I know not everyone agrees with her politics, but I've always been a liberal person. I've always been anti-arms, anti-ammunition, anti-bombs, anti-everything. Like, I'm just anti-war. And I'm also, like a bit of a rebel, I'd be, a bit of so I'd be up there with Mick. I'd be there with Mick Wallace in the corner. I'd be at the back.
Interesting fact, and we'll leave it there. We have to wrap up.
Okay.
How come it's all men apart from one woman in Dáil Éireann standing up and showing up and speaking up for women? They're all very silent apart from Sharon Gagan. The rest are men that are standing up and speaking up. And even though when it was politically incorrect and dangerous for them to do it, they still did it. Women just went quiet.
Yeah. Catherine Connolly she's spoken up a little bit too.
Yeah. But she's spoken up a little bit. I really respect Catherine Connolly. I really, really do. I think I'd love to interview her. I think she's brilliant. But women have been more quieter than the men. And
maybe the consequences, Roisin, for them standing up, it's too harsh for them.
We don't know what's going on.
We don't know what goes on behind. Do you know?
We don't know.
What they're under, what happens to, or
a lot of threats, I would say.
Yeah.
I'll have to edit that part out, but
but we need to not give them any excuses, because they need to stand up. Like, if you're a politician, you should be standing up for what you believe in, not what somebody tells you to believe in. I mean, I know that's idealistic. We need to have an idealistic attitude towards politicians. I think they need to be able to have a bit of integrity and not be swayed with the wind like that. It just doesn't cut it if you're a politician. You need to speak about who you are and be who you are and loudly be who you are, and don't be afraid to be who you are, and don't change your mind like every 2 seconds. Like that just
it's going to be very interesting now. We're going there's about 42 countries all going into elections in 2024. In Ireland, we have the local elections, we have the European elections, and we'll have a national election. And it's funny how they'll all be watching what way the pendulum is swinging, and they'll all be changing their opinions on the referendum and women, the definition of a woman, because we're coming up to canvassing an election.
I believe the Netherlands elected a far right.
They did.
Yeah, my husband was telling me.
Yeah,
Well,
they,
ladies, we can
You
bring
know
that
what?
on to a next program, and maybe see if we can get Catherine Connolly on and Sharon Gagan on. That would be
Yeah,
brilliant.
we better
I
go.
have written to their PAs, and they said they would try, but I believe Catherine Connolly goes back to Galway and gets the bus to Galway, and she doesn't do anything weekend. But if anybody has any swing, let's get the two ladies on. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Well, it'd be great to hear what they have to say. Yeah.
So,
But sure, look, we can elect one another. Why
yes.
not? You know, like,
I'll
you know,
canvass for you,
support.
ladies. I'll canvass for you.
Yeah. You know, there's the country is crying out for integrity, for realism, you know, and it's crying out for it. You can feel it in the air, you know, that there's a sense of despondency is everywhere,
Yeah.
you know.
I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get a party out of this. By the end of the year, we're going to have a little party. Even if there's going to be only a few people, there's a few people right now for politics, the right age, going in with enthusiasm, and the rest of us will just keep supporting this. The amount of intelligence in the few, I'm in a couple of groups, and I cannot believe how absolutely talented, gifted, intelligent women. They're just so rounded in every way, with just general common sense and an awful lot of skill and an awful lot of education.
But I mean, as Tracy had said, though, in the medical, it's the protection in those groups. That's the same women, the same groups. They're all patting one another on the back. They're all, you know, somebody moves from this position to the CEO to that position, and they're all just in this little. So we need to shake that up completely. Shake it up, you know, new voices, new fresh thinking, new thoughts, and whatever, and reclaim and be proud of being fabulous women, regardless, fabulous whatever age, because I'm big into the ages thing. So fabulous older women, fabulous middle-aged women, fabulous young women, fabulous young baby women.
Yes. And ordinary women doing extraordinary things.
There you go, Roisin.
Every one of you. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really enjoyed the conversations. And Catherine, you're very welcome to the Competent Women Ireland panelists. And we look forward to hearing and seeing you in the future and what you have to say and keeping us up to date of what Wicklow Women Wicklow Women for Women are doing, and we're all interested. And the Countess and Sabby, you'll be speaking to us in a couple of weeks' time about the event of women, the founder of Women Are Speaking. So you'll be holding an event there in April. So you'll come on and tell us about that. And also, we said we'll give your husband's YouTube channel a plug as well.
We can do that at a later stage.
No, come on. Tell us your husband has a YouTube channel. And
it's more for his hobby. He does he's into motorbikes, so he has 2 Royal Enfields, so he travels around the country, and he's actually taking videos of my my swims and stuff like that, and things like that. So like but he's also like, he did charity runs to raise money for some schools in Kildare and that, and loads of people, loads of men and women on motorbikes turned up with some fabulous motorbikes and stuff. So like, yeah,
of motorbikes.
Yeah. Sabby, you'll have to come on next week and tell us about the benefits of sea swimming, because you are really avid sea swimmer. So I'd love to hear about that too.
Yeah.
So Gladys O'Neill, Sabrina Devine, Rosemary McLaughlin, Tracy Donovan, and Catherine Monaghan, thank you so much for coming on and speaking tonight. I had great crack. I had great fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Phil. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.